This is going to be an introduction video where I'll talk about the things that we'll do over the coming months. I'm not going to be able to do all of the ideas that I have right now in this month because there's a lot of exercises that are justified with what you showed me. You were actually great about showing me the thorough. You thoroughly showed me what you're capable of, which is a lot. You know the jazz vocabulary. You've transcribed Bud Powell. You know ballads. You know rhythm changes. The main thing that we're going to have to work on with you is musicality. That's like, what do you do with all the vocabulary when you have it? We're going to start by, I'll ask you to slow down everything that you're doing. I mean, I know you just kind of showed me, sped up all these different things that you're capable of, but to do these exercises, we're going to have to work very slowly. My goal with you is to get you to a place of more critical thinking about what you're playing on a microcosmic level. So rather than looking at the big piece of vocabulary, you then understand why that vocabulary even makes sense in the first place. I've got a ton of things here, and I'm just going to kind of like give you an overview right now, so that also in future months you can sort of pinpoint which exercises you want me to flesh out for you. But I'll give you a few to get you going this month, and I'll also help you with organizing your time so that you can effectively utilize all of this information I'm about to give you. Here are a few exercises that I'm going to go through with you. One is bebop origins. So when you have a lick like you want to understand why that lick actually works in the first place. How did they put together that lick? And that has to do with enclosures. It has to do with goal notes, which is one thing that we're going to talk about. And contour, the up and down motion, and how that interplays between itself in different contexts. So then another thing we'll go through is goal notes. So when you're playing, if you're playing Autumn Leaves, you can see that there's already goal notes in the melody. This is the first one, this is the second one, this is the third one, and this is the fourth one. And you have a pattern leading up to that. And I'm going to show you how to do that in a larger scale context and create your own improvisations using that technique. By the way, this is like the Cliff Notes version of everything I'm going to be showing you. Okay, so feel. You have to work on your feel. That's a big thing here. I see you drawing a lot from classical music, which is you were playing things with large, with like big, thick compings, and you were arpeggiating a lot of them. If rhythm changes, but even when you were soloing, it was like a lot of really heavy-handed stuff like that. We'll go into the history of where comping comes from, where jazz rhythm comes from, and how you can utilize that in your playing, so that instead of going like even though the harmony is beautiful, then you can go like. And then as you thin it out, if you're not doing it all by yourself, or if you're soloing, it's like. And that has to do a lot with question and answer between the two hands. There are a lot of things to go into there. You have a lot of licks that you can play. I'm going to want you to take a piece of that lick and break it down. So if you have, I don't remember exactly which ones, but here's a lick that I have that I just played before. Okay? You're going to look at that lick and you're going to take a piece of it, maybe, and then figure out the nature of that. We're going to look at that, take away everything else, look at why it works, and then move it around and use it as a motif in different contexts. So that's also going to be a part of how to be musical in improvisation. We're going to talk about musicality in a way of using motifs like that. So instead of, let's just say in Autumn Leaves, we'll use this as a motif, because that's the beginning. So we'll just take that as your motif. We're going to talk about how to use that so you could go, so that you can create things that make sense as an overarching piece using that motif in different ways and moving it around to a goal from a point that your brain remembers in an arc that then creates in a context for the music that you're creating. So like I'm giving you examples here. I'm not doing, if I were to actually be soloing, it would sound different, but that's to give you an idea. The other is use of space. I know you were packing everything in, but being conscious of the space that you use and why is very important. Like if you hit a goal note, like this is your goal, so then you can use space after the goal because you exemplify like this is the place that we've hit and now we're there. And then we're going to go somewhere else. So you want to leave space to go somewhere else, but we'll get into all of that. That's just like a little taste of it. There's some exercises I'm going to do. One is picking a goal note, sticking to it, and moving the goal note around. So like let's just say we're doing Autumn Leaves, and this is your, you're going to make F your goal note. So the exercise is going to be going up to that goal note, the idea. You're always going back to that goal note, you're diverging from it, like and that's the most basic level of it. Then your goal note can move, and it can move in patterns. You can go downwards. So now your goal note's there, and you've got a pattern that links it. So your goal note moves from there to there to there, and then it could keep going down, keep going up, but now you've established a pattern. I'm going to give you an exercise for using space, which will essentially have to do with like stopping any notes after a goal note. I'm going to give you an exercise where you take one note and you expand it. So if you're doing a blues in F, you start on F as your one note. You do an entire solo in F. And then you add one note. Talk about why that pattern even works in the first place. How do you use two notes to do a solo? How do you use one note to do a solo? So we'll go into that. An exercise for time. You are rushing a lot in everything that you're doing. So we have to talk about how to, I'm going to give you some techniques working with a metronome, which you can get on your phone, and we're going to talk about how to solidify your sense of time. It's going to be very important. How to be musical in the context of a ballad. It's not about knowing the changes better. You said that you think you need to like know the changes more, but it's really not. It's about being able to use melody and use space in effective ways, and there are layers of intellectual analysis that you can do on why it is effective or not to use space and use melody in certain ways. If I'm playing like When I Fall in Love. I'm not going to even go. I'll go into the lesson if I let myself keep going into it now. But I'll be telling you how and why space and melody are working there. Voicings. We're going to talk about voicings. You have a lot of really big voicings. I didn't see you using small voicings. be very effective for you to get those in your vocabulary, because I think you're just playing way too much. I mean, you were in that lesson, and I know that you were giving everything to me as quickly as possible, but I still have a feeling that when you play in a normal context, it's probably too much, and we need to break it down, but we need to break it down in the right way, and we need to take away the pieces that are extraneous and leave the pieces that are there and morph them into a thing that is musical and is more of a window to your soul, because that's what this is supposed to be. You've built up a big vocabulary of what other people do, but it's like blocking the window that can look actually into your heart, so that you can speak in your own voice and use melody and space and harmony and bebop language and classical language and everything in a way that is true to you. And you can only do that by stripping away a lot of what you've learned, even though it'll still be there under the surface and it'll help you, but we'll strip a lot of it away. Ideally, what we'll try to leave there is just the pieces of vocabulary and the understanding to go straight from you and your brain and your heart into the music. And we'll talk about superimpositions too, because there's a world of musical interest that you haven't tapped into yet. You've learned a lot of the basic vocabulary, but there's a whole lot of like, what happens if you're in C, or let's just say, for the sake of simplicity, you're in D minor, and you're playing a modal thing. What happens if you start soloing in B flat melodic minor? Or you can even comp in it. And then, you can switch to A flat melodic minor. And you'll use the things that we talked about earlier in this, all in the context of stuff like that. But then you can also use that understanding to know how you can get from one chord to another in also a more musically effective way. Like if you're in D and you want to go to G, you can use D sharp melodic minor. Anyway, this is going to be my challenge, to do some of these now, and then we'll create a lesson plan, but let's create it together for the coming months of which things that you feel like will be the most valuable to you. Oh yeah, also creating a practice schedule, last but definitely not least. All right. So yeah, I hope you enjoy. This might be the first video that you see uploaded, and you can draw bits from this, but stay tuned for more coming soon.